Hello and welcome to the program Discourse, where we dissect critical issues shaping our nation. Today, we turn our attention to a question that strikes at the very core of Nigerians' democracy: cost of governance. We'll be majoring more around Nigeria and the burden of democracy based on the recent reports we've gotten from, around the fact that salaries of public service office holders, the president, vice presidents, and so on, would want to, looking forward to salary increments. We'll be having those conversations today. My name is Samuel Oji. Let me bring you quickly up to speed with the current report that says, where we've seen the Labour Congress and Socio-Economic Right Accountability Project has kicked against the plan or the proposed plan for salary increment for politicians. The Nigerian Labour Congress and Socio-Economic Right and Accountability Project have strongly opposed the planned upward review of the package of politicians and public office holders across the country. The Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Facial Commission had announced last week that it would embark on a comprehensive review of salaries for the president, vice presidents, ministers, governors, lawmakers, and other political office holders. According to the commission, and the current pay structure has been unchanged since 2008. And most of this look as this does not reflect the responsibilities of the office. The chairman of Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Facial Commission, Mohammed Bello Shehu, told journalists in Abuja that President Bola Tinubu currently earns 1.5 million monthly, while ministers receive less than ₦1 million. Figures he describes as a joke, given Nigerians' size as politicians. Since we are all joking in this country, why we are wondering why the chairman did not make jokes around the bonuses, the allowance, the travel allowances, and all of that, since we are in a platform where we're in a country where people joke about sensitive topics like this. I think the joke could have just translated into the bonuses that they take home on a monthly basis, the bonuses that they take when they get to travel, and so on and so forth. The joke would have just been completed. You understand, Mr. Chairman, since we're making jokes now. He also went further to argue that presidents and ministers were being paid for far less than heads of agencies and central bank governor, some whom earn 10 to 20 times more than the president and attorney general of the federation. Now, let's turn our attention to Nigerian economy based on the fact that all of these monies will be coming out from within the country and from within the economy. Now let's look at what the economy looks like. Nigeria, obviously Africa's largest economy, is also grappling with struggling debts, inflation, and rising poverty. Yet our democratic system is described by many as one of the most expensive in the world. From high salaries and allowances of lawmakers to the cost of running government at a federal, state, and local levels, the figures are mind-blowing. According to several reports, a huge percentage of Nigerians' budget goes into recurrent expenditure, paying salaries, maintaining political offices, and sustaining government bureaucracy, while little is left for critical sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. This has raised a fundamental question: is our democracy sustainable at this point? Or are we running a system Nigeria simply can't afford? That is the conversation we will be unpacking today on the Discourse. And joining me virtually to have this conversation is a public affairs analyst and also a political strategist in the person of Larry TOLUHI. Larry TOLUHI is joining all the way from London. Good afternoon, Larry, and many thanks for joining the Discourse today.
Good afternoon, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, and it's a great honor to be here today.
It's been a minute. How are you doing? And how's the weather over there? Still summer?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a while. I'm doing really good. Summer, bright day out there. So it's awesome.
All right, now let's face the elephant in the room. cost of governance in Nigeria, democracy, and all of that. Nigerians burden on democracy. What's your take generally on Nigerians' cost of governance? How we keep saying recurrence of expenditure, offices being renovated almost on a yearly basis, and now we're hearing rumors, reports, it's not even rumors anymore, where Mohammed Bello is saying that an upward review of the salaries of the president, the vice presidents, governors, and lawmakers, and every other person holding a public office needs to be reviewed upwards. Now, what is your general conception of this, looking at Nigerians' current economic situation?
So you can see I'm taking a deep breath. It shows the level we are in as a people and as a nation. Our people, we are not ready for governance. We are not ready for governance. And sometimes I think last year, quite frequent when I get stuck on this platform or that platform, I've always asked people that the problem in Nigeria is not really bad government or it's not bad leaders. The problem is only being we have bad followers. And because our followers end up being leaders and they end up misbehaving. Because you look at the like of Mohammed Bello, who is going to be in charge of any mobilization. And it's telling you that when you go critically, when you go look at it, when you go dig up everything about him, there is a high tendency that he's not the best person to be in that office, but because he had one godfather or because he had been favored by some people out there, so he's been psychopathic with his approach to work, and they see all sorts all kind of things he wants to say because he feels he needs to make those people that put him there, he needs to make them happy. Because you'll be surprised. I won't be surprised, and I won't be dazed if you actually check that he's not qualified. You'll be surprised that why he got the office. There were 2 billion and 1 people better than him before they gave him that office. So he just there's still no kind of thing. He's not really not things based. His decisions are not data driven. His decisions are not coming from the place of the father. He made well for the people. His decisions coming from a place that he feels he needs to appeal or needs to appeal those that put him there, and that's why he's going to say that. Because when you look at what's presently happening in Nigeria, you tell yourself, is that what the priority should be? But believe me, I was critical, I was vocal, I've been vocal about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu or approach to governance, and at the same time, so even here too, we had conversation, and I said, is political, as economic reforms, as economic policies, and what the nation needs, because we need to tell ourselves the truth, we need to actually know the true nature of things before we move forward. But if we're having governance, if we're having an economy where we're trying to structure an economy, we're trying to actually get people to understand what things are, you have to major on the major things and not be majoring on the minor things. Increasing the salary of public office holder. Is that what we need? I don't think that is what we need now, because we all know that salary is not the problem. The salary is minimum, and we know that. But where they make money is from their allowances. If they're truly serious about delivering the dividend of democracy to the nation or to the populace, they should sit down and tell themselves what do they need to do. You cannot be doing reforms, you cannot be telling Nigerians to endure the economic reforms while you yourself that are the end or the one leading them is not ready to be a partaker of that. I would go be expecting that the political office holders will have said, oh, we are letting go of this allowance, we are letting go of these bonuses, we are letting go of these bonuses, so that there can be infrastructural development, there can be economic development, there can be a lot of things done, but we rather spend money on recurrent expenditure, where look, that is like you trying to buy liability instead of you to be getting assets, because Nigeria spend money more on liability, and whether you like it or not, political office holders is like you spending money on liabilities instead of spending money on assets. The people we need to cater for are the people in the small, medium scale businesses, the people doing business, the general populace. The economy need to be stimulated to be able to bring out what it needs to bring out. And we are not, these people are not bothered about that. They're bothered about what they take home and what they actually do with all this money they take home, all this money they're packing, what they do about it. You see the crazy and the frivolous things they do about it. And you wonder why we are not developing as a nation. We're not developing as a nation because we have the like of Mohammed Bello in the ends of our affairs, making decisions in offices that are critical to economic and national growth.
You rightly mentioned about the fact that the president's policies are looking good based on what we are seeing now, though inflation is still there, food items are still expensive in the market, and then cost of transportation is still there. Questions Nigerians are still asking is around what is the money being saved from fuel subsidy being used for. That's one of the questions that Nigerians are asking. But before we will have that conversation, let's have this other conversation. Now, you can't have conversations around cost of governance without bringing to the table the implementation of the Oransai report, which is practical, and a whole memorandum have been drawn on how Nigeria can be able to cut the cost of governance. Now, what practical reforms can reduce governance and costs without undermining democratic and representation of the country?
See, the cost of governance Nigerian cost of governance has to actually be put down. That is a good thing, and this is actually one of the sure way out of what we are going through. We know about the Oransai report, but even when they implement the Oransai report, if they implement, not when, because the question is if they implement, what will they do? Because you can implement the Oransai report, merge some of these MDAs, but if you still have people, or if you have people that are not meant to be in the offices, you still have them. Because you see, we gone to local governments in Nigeria where you see that in some local government jobs are used to settle some people about cost to work, about cost to have interaction with some local governments. In my interventions sometime back, as far back as 10 years ago, and it's clear that in some local government, some children, because the director of local government has a child, and the child from his primary school to his university is seen as working at the local government. You ask yourself, how can a child be working in local government but they get salary being paid to them and all that? So there's a lot of corruption in our system. There's a lot of irregularity in our system. So you're not just implementing a Oransai report, it's implementing a Oransai report with wholeness and with truth, with trust, and be truthful about it, and not just go in and have ghost workers everywhere. Forget all these things they do and all that. I don't see when see government come and say, oh, they're trying to look for ghost workers. And I do not expect every government to come in and they'll try to purge the system of ghost worker. And every time they get to see people to purge off, you should ask yourself, with all this purging they've been doing, are they still having ghost workers? So just tell you how shrewd and how very, very not too straightforward our system are being. And also when you look at it and when you say, look, we don't want people to be represented, and people don't really be represented. We tailored our pro-democracy against following the pattern of the Americans, where we have the two, where we have the bilateral house system, where we have the House, the Senate, and the House of Rep, even the House of Rep and all the Senate, even with all those, our people really represented. We need to just tell ourselves the truth. What best works for us. You see, the problem we have in Nigeria, we do a lot of copy and paste. We don't domesticate. Look, there are a lot of processes. It might work in America, it might work in the UK, it might work in Europe, or will it work in Africa, or will it work in Nigeria? We as a people must sit down and be truthful, have a heart-to-heart, a truthful conversation with ourselves, and draw up something that will work for us as Nigerians, not even Africans, as Nigerians. What are those things that the uniqueness that make us Nigerians, the uniqueness that make up our system? We understand the uniqueness that makes up our system. We now know it to look for. how do we adequately represent everyone, and how do we adequately administer good governance to our people until we get to that honest and truthful conversation in doing this. We really get it right. So for me, I don't say this is what we should do, or this is not what we should do. What we should first do is call a town hall meeting, a town hall consultation forum, where we look at it and see how well, what is the kind of system we need, or what the kind of representation we need, or what kind of democracy do we need to practice as Nigerians. And I'm saying not as Africans, as Nigerians, because we must first have something that we do as Nigerians before we can even think of what we do as Africans, before we can even say this is how to go about it. Because I think what we do, we just copy every system, we do the one that we want to do, and we don't follow it through because we copy what we want to copy, and we copy the one that we think is good for the political class, and we just run along with it, and without thinking what is the merit or the demerit of what we are doing. We just want to run with something so that we can say this is where we are copying. No, I think it is wrong. We need to do what is right. We need to start looking at it that it is getting to a point that we cannot, because now even if we want to do what we want to increase the salary, it doesn't make sense to want to show. Now government will go borrow money just to pay salary. Nobody does that in the world. I don't think any rightful thinking human being will do that, to go borrow money to pay salary, because that's what we want to start doing now. Look, we need to look at it. How do we represent our people in the best way, and how do we represent them right? And it is possible. All we first need to do is have this holistic conversation, a thorough system analysis of what is good for us, and see how we can go about it.
Way forward, but we should look at another angle of the whole conversation now, based on the fact that we've seen, like, there are some conversations coming around Nigeria creating more states, and also political appointees being reduced, so to say. So if you're looking at the way of saving money and also putting Nigeria and having proper representation, do you think reducing the number of states and also cutting down in terms of political appointees, do you think that is, a universal way to be able to, tackle these major concerns? Because from what you rightly said, and from what we are actually seeing now, monies are being borrowed, and most of those monies are being used to pay salaries and all of that. So how well do you think this can be able to help cushion the challenge Nigeria is facing in light with the states and also political appointees?
So when I hear about corruption in most states, I laugh. When Nigeria has 12 states, the people are better represented than another 36 states. So it's not all good. Yeah, there might be need to create more states. I don't have any issues with that. If it is the truth thing we want to do, if you want to be changing about it. But we should ask ourselves the question. When we're 12 states, the people better represented than now that we have 36 states. Because it's not just creating states. Look, I was having a conversation with someone, I think last month, and we're talking about people talking about Nigeria going, disintegrating, going south, go to the southwest, and we have to do the Republic, and we have the Biafra, and we have whatever we have. And I was telling somebody that, do you know that even in the southwest, where we had the western region of gold, and of that western region, we had a lot of good things done in the part of Cocoa House and all that. The places that the cocoa were coming from then were used to be in those states, then that is now in the Ikiti state. We have those developmental strides like Oyo, which was the capital of western region, had Ibadan. Because even then, the resources was being moved, because everything was basically on cocoa and cocoa then in the southwest. But Ibadan had those things. And do you think that if they go back, will they be that part also the Kitima wants to be a better person than the Odoma, and the Odoma trying to prove is superior than the Kitima or vice versa? And even in the southeast, if the Biafra had gone, you know that somebody from Ebonyi would not be given the chance to express him, herself, and all that. So, and in the south, in the north, we feel somebody, the other tribes that the minority tribes that made the Hausa Fulani, they be feeling welcome. People even love things. So it's not about states. It's about us having a genuine conversation, a genuine nationwide conversation where we want to know. So for me, if you think the states is the best way, we can create more states, no problem for federal representation. But before we create the states, we should first ask ourselves the question. We should first have this congress. We should first have this confirm yes, where we sit down and look what is our problem. Have a deep dialogue, a deep talk to know what is wrong or how to go forward. You don't just creating states for better representation. How do we represent our people? What do our people need in representation? And then the separation of power. And that's one of the problems we're having, because we see those in the National Assembly get constituency allowances, and they get constituency allowances, they get to go to rules, they get to go to schools. All those are not meant for them in the legislative. What they should be doing as legislator, they shouldn't be bothered about constituency allowances. They should be bothered about formulating and getting the laws, where the those in executive should be faced with providing infrastructural development, while those in the judiciary should face themselves with interpretation and discharge of law, interpretation of the law and discharge of good. You see where the common man can go and get justice, share of justice. That's what it is. But we've leveled everything up that even those in the House of Reps, those in the Senate, we do not are now being held accountable based on the number of schools they build, based on the number of roads they build, based on the number of healthcare facilities they build. That is not their core duty, but because they actually saw their own hands by getting what they call the consistency allowances, and that is where we're having problems. So even if we have more states, we have more people in the National Assembly, we have more people even in the State Assembly, these things will still going to be going wrong because we've not separated duties. The terms of reference are all being knocked up. We need to knock them up. We need to separate this term of duties. We need to spell it out. What do you need to do as an executive member? What do you need to do as a legislative member? What you need to do as a judiciary member? What you need to do as a public, as a private citizen? What is expected of you? According to the things we should ask ourselves, not just doing this, because we are not logical in our approach to governance in Nigeria. We are all just emotional. We just get more emotional than all we know. We should be logical, we should be detailed, we should be strategic in our thinking and in our approaches to giving the governance.
The major concerns that Nigerian citizens are complaining about, based on the fact that they said they are not enjoying that currently. But let's just, before I let you go, I know you're a very busy man. The National Assembly is often singled out for earning jumbo salaries, and I want to ask you if you think that's a fair criticism or is a problem of a more systematic approach. And on the other note, just over the past weekend, we saw videos trending all over social media where it said former governor is ordering House of Representative members to pass whatever that comes from the governor, whether it's being understood or not. In terms of representation now, do you think that these individuals that Nigerians send via votes to go represent them, do you think they are actually going there to represent the people wholeheartedly, or they are just pushing people's narratives based on what someone has instructions someone has given them to follow?
It's funny, right? It's funny because you see, like you said, the National Assembly, whether they are being valid or not, it's easy change for me, because you see, people, the electorate we have a way of our bodies. Like I was saying earlier, in my area comments, we have a lot of bordering there. You see, if somebody wants to run for House of Rep, if somebody wants to run for House of Rep in Nigeria, presently, the minimum he or she should be thinking less than a billion. So where do you want them to get the money from? Because people put all the burden on them. We're talking on the electorate, put all the burden on them. They call them for children's school fees, they call them for school fees, they call them for birthday, 2 years birthday, 3 years birthday, hospital bills and all that. So these guys, what do you want them to get the money from? You get, but that being said aside, like I said too, the two should stop doing what they should stop doing all those things that is not their business. Look, they have no business collecting constituency allowances. They should let the executive take care of constituencies. All they need to do is to owe the executive office holders owe them to do what is right and making them do what they need to do, and just make sure there's better representation for the people. And talking about where a former state government is telling supposed state assembly members to sit down on the floor and telling them to take orders over the government brings it should. You see, there is no separation of power. You don't forget that, like I said, that in democracy, there are three arms of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. But since in Nigeria, everything has all been good up. See, everybody is now dependent on the executive. So when he plays Papa the terms, that's just what's happening. It is an eyesore and it is pathetic to see that happen, but that is the reality we have seen here. That's just the reality. And you see, and the reason is that 95 to 98%, if not 100% of all those guys in the House of the state assemblies, most of them, they're not qualified. They're not even qualified to be there. Somebody just unpicked them and said, look, you are representing this constituency, and they were selected because, look, are they really elected? Are they really elections in Nigeria? Most of them are not elected, they're not popular, they're not known, but they end up finding themselves there. So they have to play by the tone of the man that put them there, or the women that decided to put them there. And that is what you see, and that is why we are not getting the dividend of democracy. That is why we cannot see, if you remember 1999, we saw states impeaching their governors, we saw states doing things, changing their speakers. There is no state as we speak today that can wake up and impeach their speaker without the endorsement of the government. That's pathetic. We only saw something like that. Even the Lagos State law, because the only place you could see that there will be separation of power in the legislative and the executive was Lagos. Until recently, it's not really looking. So it is pathetic. It is where we find ourselves. But it is. So you ask yourself, is it even if we decide to have 7 more states to what we have in Nigeria, that same culture will continue. The people and the populace will still not get the dividend of democracy. They will not still get adequate representation as they should have. The people need to start voting the right people. They should stop this selection process and let there be election process, because what we have presently in Nigeria is selection process, and as long as that selection process says that's going to be having where a governor or a former governor or somebody will tell people that need to be representing hundreds of thousands of people, even millions of people to sit down on the floor, and they will sit down on the floor and tell them whatever the governor bring or whatever the president bring, you must endorse. They're not even looking at it whether it's affecting your constituent or not. As far as it is being done by the governor, you quickly say the yes sir, yes no, men and women. It is painful, but that is where we are.
What can be done now to be able to cut away this cancer before it spreads wider than the way it's spreading already? Like you rightly mentioned earlier, most of the time Nigerians now have argued that they don't have faith in our electoral system. How can a common man, take away that mentality off his head? What sensitization process needs to be put in place by maybe social society groups or even the government to educate people more on vote buying and otherwise? As we wrap up,
the government that's benefiting from it will not sensitize people. That's just true. So I think what INEC needs to do, because INEC mandate is not just to conduct election. I think that's where INEC is what is missing. INEC's mandate is not just to conduct, and its mandate is to mobilize, is to sensitize people on election processes and leadership recruitment processes. Are they doing? They are not doing what the National Electoral Agency doing. It's not doing that. And the people too, they need to look, do we need people to tell us, do we need anybody anybody to tell you when you're hungry before you eat. When you're hungry and you have food, you go eat. You know your prayers when you go to the toilet. You don't need anybody to nudge you to do that. So people should know that now they should stop getting unnecessary, soliciting for necessary funds from people that they want to elect, because once you get their money, you are never bound to vote for them, bound to do something. If you don't need it, find a way not to ask them. If you don't, if that option, don't go to this guy, go to someone else. If you're really parent, and you should not make it should be a thing that for anybody to be voted, even for a councillor, local government chairman or chairperson, or your House of Rep member, governor, the House of Assembly, even the National Assembly or president. People should come sell you their manifesto. You should see them, and not just tell you they sell you their manifesto. They should tell you how they want to get to the point, from point A to point B. They should tell you all the stuff they are doing, not just tell you, oh, I will create 1 billion jobs. They should tell you the process they want to use in creating the 1 billion jobs. They should speak to their manifesto. They should have public debate. They should have town hall meetings where you can question people, you recruit, because that's what they call the leadership recruitment process. By the time you get there, by the time they've spoken and they've done that. So even if somebody has an idea and they've told you what they want to do and how they want to do it, and they're not having all the money in the world, and somebody is bringing all the money in the world, there's nothing wrong if you take all the money, but you go vote for the person that has the way to do it. Because once you vote someone based on what they told you they would do, and you not collected their money, you have the boldness to come out and to demand good representation from them. But if I collected my money and you give me a better money to give you so that I can win my election, you have no moral right, you have no justification to come to me to ask me for good governance.
All right. Thank you very much, LANRE, TOLUHI, for taking our time to join us. It's very interesting, this conversation we're having. I really appreciate you for taking our time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, to unpack further this conversation is Comrade James Ezema, but he'll be joining us shortly after this break. Stay with us.